VK2WI and VKE580 on 5425 kilohertz, it's time to take the relay of national amateur radio news from VK1WIA.
Hello there, I'm Graham, VK4BB. This is the national news for week commencing July 15, 2018. 13 young people in Thailand are alive today partly because of radio. A radio system, in fact, that was designed by a British ham nearly 20 years ago. The radios are specialised low-frequency units called Hay phones, bearing the name of John Hay Golf 3 TDZ, now a silent key. WIA presenter VK2LAW Jason will have a little more when he looks at the international news further down today's log. ARN has launched interactive advertising technology, Shake Me, across iHeartRadio via an audio ad format launched in December last year by Californian tech company AdsWiz. Now in Australia, when listeners hear a Shake Me advertisement with a tailored call to action, they'll be able to shake their device, which will either trigger a phone call, download a coupon, or open a landing when they next unlock their phone. Shake Me advertisements are designed so that consumers can engage directly with specialised ads without the need to unlock their phones, click through, or even look at their screen. The Chief Operating Officer of iHeartRadio Australia said, "There is a massive penetration of mobile ownership in Australia and a rapid migration of radio listening onto digital platforms like iHeartRadio. When you combine those things with the Shake Me technology, which allows advertisers to give consumers the control to instantly interact further with the brand whilst listening to their ad with just a simple shake of their phone, you have an incredibly powerful marketing tool. Look, up in the sky, it's a plane? No, look further. It's the ISS. And does it have a date for you?"
That would be Tuesday, July the 17th. That's when the students at Essex Heights Primary School in Melbourne, Australia, will get their long-awaited moment with astronaut Serena Aunan-Chancellor KG5 TMT on board the International Space Station. The hour will be 6:24 p.m. local time, which is 8:24 UTC. While the students have their interaction via Telebridge, the rest of the world can get in on the action by participating on the internet. There's a live streaming link for worldwide viewing, and it will be published on the school's website. Just visit www.essexheightsps.vic.edu.au. I'm Robert Broomhead, VK3DN.
Hello, this is Marcus, VK5, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Normally I like to bring a positive message to my comments, but this time I'm struggling. The ACMA has asked stakeholders for submissions for their 5-year Spectrum Outlook paper. And the WA has tried to get some positives out of it, but with the pressures on Spectrum, it has been hard. Frankly, the WA is disappointed with the draft. The WAA acknowledges that ACMA has said that they will review some matters, including certificates of proficiency, permitted power, bandwidths and emission modes, foundation licensed use of digital modes, and clarifying some terminology. Our submission to the ACMA provided detailed responses suggesting regular meetings rather than ad hoc, and the WA has outlined the use of amateur microwave bands for satellite communication, and that it is being impacted by terrestrial interference being created by unregulated consumer electronics, and that it affects all spectrum users. Concern for wireless power transfer was also expressed. The ACMA has declined to progress frequency allocations, but the WAA's response has detailed suggestions on ways to move forward, including adding 60 metre band, 160 and 80 metre band expansions, primary status for 50 to 52 MHz, a small allocation at 70 MHz, and preservation of access to 23 centimetres. Access to frequency bands for licensed amateurs is about opportunity, the opportunity to experience and experiment for themselves. This principle is embodied in the ITU definition of the amateur service. Access to new frequency bands, as the WA has proposed, is about the future development of the amateur service. Continuing development and self-training principles are also embodied in the ITU definition of the amateur service. 73 from VK5 WTM.
News, talk and radio sport. Here with VK1WIA.
Here on Radio Operational News, it's Contact Sport. I'm Felix, VK4FUQ. All major Australian contest rules and contest section of the WIA website. July 14-15 Worldwide IARUH Youth Championships this weekend. July 21 VKZL Trans-Tasman Low Band Contest. August 11-12 VK Remembrance Day Contest. August 18-19 Worldwide Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend. August 25-26 VK Alara Wild Contest. October 6 Worldwide Oceanidex Contest. Trent VK40S on behalf of the WIA. VK Shires Contest 2018. Team says the results are in. Top of the winners list available on wia.org.au are VK5LJ and VK3XV. Said to each and every entrant, thank you for entering the VK Shires Contest 2018. Trent also told WIA News that with the Trans-Tasman Low Band 160-80-40 just around the corner, certificates are going to be produced using the same method as the RD for this year. In 2019 they will be adopting the new cross-checking system, which will generate certificates in PDF for you to print. Radio DARC special coverage of the World Radio Sport Team Championship 2018. On the occasion of WRTC 2018, Radio DARC will broadcast two special programs. Saturday, July 14, 2018 from 11 hours to 12 hours AM UTC in English on 6070 kHz for Europe and Western Asia with 300 kilowatts output power. 13860 kHz for North America with 300 kilowatts output power. Sunday, July 15, 2018 from 9 hours to 10 hours AM UTC in German on 6070 kHz for Europe with 100 kilowatts output power. Broadcasts are on AM on frequencies in the 49 and 22 metre shortwave broadcast bands. The Radio DARC program regularly airs on Sundays at 9 hours AM UTC on 6070 kHz and covers current news in amateur radio and shortwave, equipment reports, technology tips and interviews along with a bit of varied music. After the discontinuation of Deutsche Welle, VOA and other former shortwave stations, the weekly broadcast of Radio DARC is unique in its magazine format worldwide. Kingstown Regatta, Centenary. In the late 19th century, the Kingstown Regatta was a big annual social event in Dublin. Wireless telegraphy was in its infancy when in July 1898 the Dublin Express newspaper invited Marconi to set up a wireless station aboard the Flying Huntress and get at the race finish line. The results were transmitted back to the Harbour Master's office in Kingstown and telephoned outward to the newspaper offices. Special editions of the newspaper with results of the races were on sale in Kingstown before the odds had returned to port. This was the first use of wireless in reporting on a sporting event. The races took place in Dublin Bay, just off Howth. To commemorate the 120th anniversary of this historic event, the I0MAR will be celebrating by being QRV from the Martello Tower in Howth on Saturday 21st of July, and a special QSL card will be available for all QSOs and SWL reports. Bruce 3W3B is active as XW4XR from Laos to the 22nd. He operates on 40 to 10 metres, 6 metres, CW, RITI and JT65. QSL via E21EIC, LOTW or direct. Andre NJOF is active as A25A from Botswana from the 13th to the 20th. He will be on 8 to 10 minutes SSB, CW, RITI and FT8. QSL via NJOF direct or Club Log OQRS. Kale K6GO and Mike NA6MB is active as ZF2GO and ZF2NA. From Grand Cayman Island, IOTA NA016 from the 11th to the 15th. Operating on 160 to 6 metres, they will also take part in the IARUH Championship at ZF1A, the CARS HQ station. QSL via K6GO. For VK1WIA National News, I'm Felix, VK4FU QNM.
This is VK2WI. We're pausing VK1WIA news for network identification. Would manual relay stations please identify? Thank you, relay stations. VK2WI provides this news bulletin on a range of frequencies from 160 metres through to 23 centimetres, along with relays via many regional VHF and UHF repeaters. We thank the operators of these systems for their time and effort. This is VK2WI and VKE 580 on 5425 kHz. We now return to VK1WIA National News.
International news with thanks to IARU, RSGB, SARL, Southgate Amateur Radio Club, ARRL, Amateur Radio Newsline, RAC, NZART, and the worldwide sources of the WIA. I'm Jason, VK2LAW. From around the world they came to successfully rescue 12 young members of a football team and their 25-year-old coach trapped by flooding in the caves in Thailand. A British contribution included 4 hayphones, a specialist cave radio system that can transmit hundreds of metres through solid rock, which allows radio communication between the surface and the cave, as well as a diver's switch, which allows divers to switch between multiple cylinders underwater. These hayphones were supplied by Derbyshire Cave Rescue Organisation and operate on LF at around 87 kHz. Aviation radiation, new results from the South Pacific. On the heels of a new study showing that flight attendants have an elevated risk of cancer compared to the general population, SpaceWeather.com and the students of Earth to Sky Calculus recently boarded a plane in the USA and flew to New Zealand carrying an array of cosmic ray sensors. During their 13-hour flight across the South Pacific, the team detected secondary cosmic rays in the passenger compartment almost 40 times stronger than on the ground below. Their haul of radiation included a significant number of neutrons captured in portable bubble chambers. Read SpaceWeather.com for the full story. From the Netherlands, HF Spectrum Pollution, IEEE published paper. The IEEE have published measurement methodology and results of measurements of the man-made noise floor on HF in the Netherlands. A Google English translation of Veron site reads, on June 28, 2018, the Veron EMC-EMF Commission received the good news that the article Measurement Methodology and Results of Measurements of the Man-Made Noise Floor on HF in the Netherlands has been published by IEEE. The Veron Board of Directors congratulates Koos, Papa Alpha Zero Kilo Delta Foxtrot, Peter, Papa Echo 1 Golf Echo X-Ray, and Frank Lefferink of University of Twente with this publication. We radio amateurs operate mainly in the HF spectrum. An increase in human-made noise is immediately noticeable to the radio amateur. This publication not only confirms what radio amateurs have known for a long time, with this scientific research, it has now been proven objectively. The Veron EMC-EMF Committee can use this research in contacts with organisations such as NEC-EMC and contacts with the government. From the USA, NASA has awarded a contract to the California Institute of Technology in Pasadena, California, to continue operations of the agency's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, also in Pasadena. This cost-plus fixed fee, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract has a maximum value of $30 billion. The contract begins on October 1 with a 5-year base period of performance, followed by 5 one-year options that could extend the contract to September 30, 2028. Under this contract, Caltech will continue to develop and sustain core competencies in support of NASA-sponsored work in the areas of Earth and planetary sciences, heliophysics, astrophysics, and aeronautics and space activities to include the development of spacecraft and instruments. Caltech also will manage NASA-sponsored programs that carry out competed and peer-reviewed research, NASA partnerships with other government agencies, academia and the private sector, and the operation, research and management of NASA's Deep Space Network. FCC, North Huntington man settle over alleged radio disruption. The Tribune Review report on allegations of interference with amateur radio communications. The newspaper says a well-known Westmoreland County ham radio operator has agreed to pay $7,000 to the federal government to settle allegations he intentionally interfered with communications implications amongst other radio amateur operators, officials have said.
The government announced a settlement on July 3rd with Brian Crow, K3VR, dating back to the government's charge that on March 14th, 2014, he interfered with other radio amateurs and failed to identify himself with a call sign. A press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office also noted that the settlement reduced his operating class to technician for the next 6 months. According to the FCC, if no new violations occur, his amateur extra operating privileges will be restored. An FCC press release called the fine, quote, a substantial payment for an amateur operator, end quote. Brian Crow has held an amateur radio license since 1976. I'm Andy Morrison, K9AWM.
Nova Scotia's Port Bickerton Lighthouse has a story that's about to get a new chapter, as we hear from Kent Peterson, KC0DGY.
Canadian radio amateur Billy Budge, VE1AAO, created his first tribute to his father a number of years ago with the publication of a book that tells his family's story when they lived on St. Paul Island. Fred Budge was the lighthouse keeper there starting in 1955, and the book Memoirs of a Lighthouse Keeper's Son recalls those years. Now there's a second tribute planned for Billy's father. On July 13th through the 15th, the Pictou County Amateur Radio Club and the Maritime Lighthouse Amateur Radio Group are activating the Port Bickerton Lighthouse on Nova Scotia's eastern shore. Fred Budge had been a lighthouse keeper there as well from 1960 to 1977. Using the call sign VE1UW, the hams will be on the air for 48 hours, dedicating their activation to Fred Budge. They will honor him from a lighthouse that has remained a beacon of safety for more than a century for those sailing the North Atlantic. I'm Kent Peterson, KC0DGY.
On the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, another lighthouse is about to see a different kind of action. Jeremy Boot, G4NJH, tells us more.
The lighthouse on a small reef between Sweden and Finland is about to provide an unprecedented opportunity for an international group of young radio amateurs. They'll be on the air at the Market Reef Lighthouse, a DXCC entity operating as OJ0C from the 21st to the 28th of July. Their activities are being sponsored by the Finnish Lighthouse Society and the Amateur Radio League of Finland in conjunction with OHDX Foundation, OHDXF, and DX University. The organisers are calling this activity International Youth at Sea. Their operations on the air will be supplemented by instruction in operating the radio equipment, managing pile-ups, an introduction to digital modes, and just as importantly, safety and survival. That fact is not insignificant. The Market Reef Lighthouse is anything but a safe haven. Set at sea level, waves cover it at times, and it has no jetty, so landings must be accomplished via small inflatable boats. The operators, all of whom are between 16 and 25 years of age, are also part of a cultural exchange that is to be repeated sometime in August. I'm Jeremy Bucci for NJH.
The new exam for the U.S. technician license made its debut, but not where you might think. John Williams, VK4JJW, has that story.
In case you were wondering where in the United States the first new technician exam was given with the new set of questions, well, keep wondering. It wasn't in the US at all, but in Australia. Two candidates, Ward and John, sat for the test at a hangar in Bankstown Airport, Sydney, at 8 a.m. local time Sunday, July 1st. But wait, it was still Saturday afternoon in the States. Getting a jump on things nonetheless were VE's Julian AG6LE, Bob AC1CZ, and Brad AK2QQ as part of OzVE, which gives the US licensing tests across eastern Australia. Better still, Julian tells us both candidates passed the test. The early bird gets the license. I'm John Williams, VK4JJW.
From the Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm editor Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT, and you're listening to VK1WIA.
This is VK2WI. We're pausing VK1WIA news for network identification. Would manual relay stations please identify? Thank you, relay stations. A bulletin of news compiled by Amateur Radio New South Wales follows this bulletin from VK2WIA. VK2WI News has coverage throughout Southeast Australia, and clubs, groups and individuals are invited to contribute content by email to news@arnsw.org.au. This is VK2WI on a range of frequencies and VKE 580 on 5425 kHz. We now return to VK1WIA National News.
Hi, it's the Baker Graham, VK4 Baker stepping in again with Media Watch. Shortwave radio listening continues its steep decline. Figures published by the BBC show more people listen directly to World Service English via the internet than by any other method. The global audience measure, the GAM figures, indicate how many adults the BBC reached weekly with its news and entertainment content in the year 2017-18. The BBC World Service, which has just undertaken its biggest expansion since the 1940s, has seen its audience increase by 10 million to 279 million. The total global news audience has risen by 1 million to 347 million. The shortwave radio audience has virtually disappeared in Pakistan and is now down substantially in Nigeria. Everybody, it seems, is using their smarty phone.
Hello, I'm Col, VK3LED, with this week's WIA Worldwide Special Interest Group News. And the lead story this week comes from WIA ARDF Coordinator Jack, VK3WW.
Later this year, a team of amateurs from Australia will experience thorn bushes, deep ravines, along with daily temperatures of around 20 degrees Celsius. They also need to be prepared for rain and cold. No, this is not a SOTA report, but a description of the terrain facing competitors in the 19th IARU World ARDF Championships. Competition commences September 2nd and finishes September 8th, 2018. It is expected that over 400 people from 25 amateur radio societies around the world will be meeting in Sokyo City, Gangwon-do Province, South Korea. This championship event is being hosted by the Korean Amateur Radio League. Among the competitors will be a team of 5, including VK3OW, VK3FJTE, VK3FDAC, VK3ADY and VK3WWW, representing Australia. There are 4 ARDF events at this World Championships. They are Sprint, Vauxhall, Classic 80-metre ARDF and Classic 2-metre ARDF. As you can imagine, competition at this level is very tough. Even finishing in the top 10 in the world is a great achievement. More information about ARDF can be found on the Victorian ARDF Group webpage, www.ardf.org.au. Wishing all the competitors, both local and international, the very best for competition. This has been Jack, VK3WWW, the WIA ARDF Coordinator.
Thanks, Jack. Now to Worldwide Special Interest Groups Ballooning, up and away. The Raspberry Pi Foundation Sky Academy program, supported by UK HAS members, in particular Dave, M0RPI, have trained more than 50 teachers to successfully launch near space missions with their students. On the Raspberry Pi site, James Robinson says making ballooning as accessible as possible is something they've been keen to do since first becoming involved in 2015. James said he's delighted that over the past year they've worked with Dave to produce 2 new applications to support HAB activities. PyTrack is a Python implementation of Dave's original C-based Pi in the Sky software, enabling learners to create their own tracker in a simpler programming language rather than simply configuring the existing software. And Skygate, which is a complete tracking application which also runs on a Pi. Worldwide Special Interest Groups Digital, Codec 2HF Digital Voice at 450 BPS. David Rowe, VK5DGR, reports that Thomas Kurin, a student at the Friedrich Alexander University Erlangen-Nuremberg, has developed a version of Codec 2 that encodes speech at just 450 BPS. Any speech codec running as low as 450 bits per second is pretty special, and this work is also a great starting point for further innovation and quality improvements. Thomas has sent VK5DGR some samples and is working with him to merge his new mode into Codec 2 Dev and has kindly offered to tell us his story, which you can read about in this week's text edition of WIA National News. Worldwide Special Interest Group's Final Frontier, 145.825 MHz APRS CubeSats for August deployment. The June 29, 2018 SpaceX Falcon 9 launch of the Dragon cargo capsule included CubeSats of the Birds 2 satellite constellation. All CubeSats in the Birds 2 constellation, Maya 1, Bhutan 1 and UTIMSat-1, have identical designs and utilize the same radio frequencies. Whilst made independently, the operation and control of the three CubeSats will be shared by the three teams after they're released from the ISS early in August. They'll be operational for 6 months. The three will form a constellation orbiting the Earth from different places, providing the countries more opportunities to make measurements and run experiments compared to using one CubeSat. Joel Joseph Marciano Jr., manager of the PHL Microsat program in the Philippines, said the primary mission of the Birds 2 CubeSat constellation is to provide a digital message relay service to the amateur radio community by means of an APRS digipeater on board. The digipeater on board Birds 2 CubeSats will use 145.825 MHz for both receive and transmit, which is the standard configuration used by other satellites such as ARIS and LA-PAN A2. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, ILLW. Well, they say that's the first time for everything, and nowhere could that be truer than in amateur radio. The International Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend, which happens on the third full weekend in August, is marking its 21st anniversary and has welcomed 250 registered lighthouses so far this year. But it's also celebrating the debut of a number of new participants. As an amateur radio first, these include the Ashdod and Mount Carmel lighthouses in Israel, Shabla Lighthouse in Bulgaria, Port Call Breakwater in Wales, and Tanjung Datu in Malaysia. There are even more lighthouses new to the game in Mexico and Cuba. Organiser Kevin Mulcahy, VK2CE, said the event begins on August 18 at 1 minute past midnight UTC. That's still a few weeks off, so as always, the pace of entries is expected to gather momentum in the days ahead. Registered participants also include one of South Africa's most historic lighthouses, which will be activated by the Boland Amateur Radio Club during the event. The club is marking its own milestone, their 70th anniversary, with the special event call sign ZS70BAK. Kevin and Ted, W8TTS, maintain the list of lighthouses and expect the list to include more than 500 by the final week. That's a rate of growth you might say is almost at the speed of light. House. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Radio Amateur Young Timers. With only a few weeks to go to YOTA 2018 in South Africa, the SARL YOTA events team is hard at work with preparations for the 7-day program, filled with a range of amateur radio-related activities, excursions, and, of course, lots of fun. Letters to successful candidates to join the South African team have been mailed, and the names and call signs of the team will be announced once the selected team members have confirmed their participation in the event. YOTA 2018 will offer many opportunities to learn more about amateur radio and getting to know fellow amateurs from various other countries. From YOTA to JOTA, Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Radio Scouting. Registration for JOTA JOTAI 2018 is now open. The time has come for registration of each scout group for the largest scouting event of the year. Registration can be done at the Worldwide site via the link on the text edition of this broadcast. This year's JOTA JOTAI event provides registered groups with access to the International Jamboree page. You'll be able to see at a glance all the registered stations from around the world and take part in the largest scout event to be held each year. This also provides the opportunity to contact other stations around the world before the event and set up a dedicated time, etc. to make the contact. So start planning your event now. Your National JOTA JOTAI coordinator can assist you with getting in touch with one of the local scout groups. It's not difficult to set up an event at your local scout hall. All you need is a couple of cubs and scouts and a scouter or two to organise the weekend. No need to run the entire weekend either. You choose what days to operate according to your group schedule. The busiest times are on the Saturday. Brett Nicholas, VK2BNN, is Scouts Australia National Coordinator for JOTA, and Lorraine O'Hare, VK2FICQ, is the Girl Guides Australia National JOTA JOTAI Coordinator. Worldwide Special Interest Groups Rescue Radio. Held in South Africa, the Radar, RADAR Challenge is a unique event aimed at promoting the use of rapidly deployable amateur radio stations. The category of participation, fixed, field or moving, may be changed at any time during the challenge. The point system is structured to encourage portable radar operations, especially movable radar stations. Radar operators are encouraged to be self-sufficient during each challenge, with not only power and communications equipment, but also food, water, protective clothing and shelter. Radar operators define their own operating time schedule. It's up to each individual to plan his or her maximum single-period 4 hours of operating. The second radar challenge takes place from 0000 to 23:59 UTC, Saturday 14th of July, with CW, SSB, FM or any legal amateur radio digital mode on all amateur bands, including crossband contacts via amateur radio satellites. I'm Cole, VK3LED for WIA National News.
On the social scene, 2018, July 20 in VK3, and something a little different from Bendigo Amateur Radio and Electronics Club. An invite to radio control models on steroids. A presentation by model shipbuilder Nigel Allen. The evening commences at 7:30 p.m. Friday, July 20 at the Longley Sports Pavilion, 20 Longley Lane, Longley. I'm Graham, VK4BB. Walk softly.
Thanks to Graham and the National WIA News team. This is VK2WI News live from our facilities at Dural in Sydney. I'm your announcer this morning, Stuart, VK2BMX, and in engineering is Jeff, VK2BYY. Visitors here at Dural this morning are many, and we'll talk about that a bit further on. The weather here is fine and cool, with a temperature outside that has just dropped back to 8.7 degrees. Rainfall at the VK2WI site over the last week was 0 millimetres. Our transmitter status is all okay.
Good morning. This is a test transmission from VK2WI, Good morning. This is a test
Good morning, everyone. We've had a bit of a problem with our introductory CD there. We'll get back to it shortly. In the news from Amateur Radio New South Wales for this week, today is the second day of the ARNSW Foundation course and assessment weekend. The next course, run by ARNSW, is on the weekend of the 15th and 16th of September. The next event at VK2WI Dural will be the Trash and Treasure and Radio Experimenters Group meeting on Sunday the 29th of July. While on the subject of licence examinations, recently we reported here about the US licence exams being held by ARRL volunteer examiners in Sydney at Bankstown Airport. These were in fact the first exams to use the new technician question pool for the US licence. Both candidates were successful in passing both technician and general papers. Congratulations to Ward on gaining the Alaska call KL4SG, which will be useful for travelling, and to our very own John Vetters on KE8KGC. For details on the next sessions, bookmark veexams.com. ARNSW Radio Experimenters Group. This Tuesday evening, the 17th of July, the ARNSW Radio Experimenters Group will be holding their monthly net. The net starts at 8 p.m. on the Dural 2-metre repeater on 147.0 megahertz, and then at about 8:30 p.m. will transfer over to HF. Depending on conditions, the net may be on either 80 metres or 40 metres. The 80 metre frequency will be 3686.4 kilohertz, and the 40 metre frequency will be 7159 kilohertz. As well as store-bought equipment, participants are encouraged to use home-brewed equipment on AM, double-sideband or single-sideband. So for those interested in building their own equipment, experimenting with radios, or just looking for a new aspect of amateur radio, then join the net. Then in 2 weeks' time, Sunday the 29th, is the bi-monthly meeting of the group. Brian Clark, a VK2 GCE, will be giving a presentation on electromagnetic compatibility, or EMC. Electromagnetic radiation from 0.01 Hz to in excess of 60 gigahertz has the power to help us grow and enjoy our lives, but it can also be a right royal nuisance. Brian will map out the EMI, EMC and EMR field and then focus on a few things that we as radio amateurs can do to reduce EMI, to achieve a modicum of EMC and live more happily. With plumbing, it is always a good plan to fix the source of the leak, but it's not so easy to fix the source of EMI, so we need to build good defences. Brian's presentation will address bonding, filtering, grounding, phasing, shielding and spacing. The meeting will start with the usual show and tell segment, where members of the audience get up to show some project that they have been working on. So come along at noon to VK2WI at 63 Quarry Road, Dural, on Sunday the 29th. Advised by Peter, VK2EMU, Coordinator, AR-NSW Radio Experimenters Group. And now we're up to the weekly solar and geophysical report for the period of the 6th to the 12th of July. First, the summary. Dates across the columns are 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and finally the 12th. 10 centimetre flux, 71, 72, 72, 73, 72, 72. I'll say that again, that's 73 and then 72 on the 12th. Fredericksburg Index, the AFR, 8, 6, 6, 5, 11, 8, and 8 estimated. Australian Index, the AAUS, 4, 2, 1, 1, 3, 7, and 5 estimated. T Index, 13, 9, 8, 6, 10, 8, 13. Solar flare activity was low on the 6th, then very low for the rest of the week. Geomagnetic activity in the Australian region was quiet, except for some unsettled periods on the 11th. F2 critical frequencies in the southern Australian region remained near predicted monthly values during daylight hours all week. However, enhancements were observed during local nights of 25% on the 6th, 35% on the 7th, 25% on the 8th, 30% on the 9th, 25% on the 10th, 25% on the 11th, and 20% on the 12th of July. Now the forecast for the 13th to the 19th of July. Solar activity is expected to be very low. Geomagnetic activity is expected to be mostly quiet with some unsettled conditions, possibly between the 13th to the 16th of July. Maximum usable frequencies should remain mostly near predicted monthly values. Data provided courtesy of Space Weather Services. Solar Flux Index update. Here are the updated Solar Flux Index, the SFI figures for this week. Having finished June, the figures were minimum 67, average 73, maximum 82, with peak dates between the 19th and the 25th. Halfway through July, the prediction so far is a minimum of 67, average of 71, and a maximum of 74, with peak dates between the 8th and the 24th. And looking ahead to the prediction for August, minimum 68, average 72, maximum 76, with peak dates between the 8th and the 18th. Update with thanks to Noel of VK2FUL. Now we're up to the Wyson News. The Wyson New South Wales annual general meeting will be held at AR-NSW in Quarry Road, Dural, on Saturday the 11th of August, starting at 3 p.m. September is shaping up to be a busy month on the Wyson calendar. The Great North Walk Ultras are a series of trail races from Taralba to Patonga Wharf on the 8th and 9th of September. Then the VH MDX Barrington Sarex, or Search and Rescue exercise, is on the 14th to 16th, and the Hounslow Classic is a running event around Blackheath on the 22nd and 23rd. Wyson induction training will be held here at Dural on July 22nd, starting at 9:30am. The Wyson website at nsw.wyson.org.au includes membership information, a web contact form, other contact details and useful links. Logging in gives members access to further coming events and various manuals. Facebook users will find a new official Wyson New South Wales page and an informal national Wyson group. Wyson Northern Rivers holds a weekly net on Tuesdays at 8pm local time on the Lismore repeater VK2RSC on 146.8 MHz, requiring a 123Hz tone. Listen for VK2WIR. Their next meeting is on Sunday, August 12th from 10am at the SARC Club Rooms. The Wyson Mid-North Coast region meets at 3:30pm on the first Saturday of the month at SES headquarters, Central Road, Port Macquarie. The region is also running an HF net on Thursday evenings from 7pm on the Maddens Plains 80-metre Wyson frequency of 3.6 MHz. Wyson ACT is part of the Canberra Region Amateur Radio Club, supporting events in the ACT and Capital Country. Next Saturday is the BMSC Narooma Rally, and the Batemans Bay Rally is on August the 11th. The ACT ERA Brookvale Horse Endurance Ride is on September 29th and 30th. See the Wyson and events pages on www.crarc.ampr.org. Wyson Victoria has a net on 3.6 MHz each Wednesday at 8:30pm local time. For details on future events, visit the website at vic.wyson.org.au. Submitted by Julian, VK2YJS, on behalf of the Wyson New South Wales State Management Committee.
This is VK2WI and relay stations pausing for network identification. Would manual relay stations please identify? Thank you, relay stations. 2010 marked 100 years of organised amateur radio activity in Australia. It was in March 1910 that a meeting held in Sydney evolved into the WIA, the world's oldest national amateur radio society. This is VK2WI on a range of frequencies and VKE 580 on 5425 kHz. Now back to the news.
And now we're up to the club news. We start this week with news from the Oxley Region Amateur Radio Club. The next meeting of the club is the July Friday night gathering at 7pm on Friday the 20th of July in the SES building in Port Macquarie. Club membership renewals for the 2018-2019 year fell due on the 1st of July, so members are asked to please renew promptly. Candidates for the Foundation, Standard and Advanced licences should contact the club via PO Box 712, Port Macquarie, New South Wales 2444 as soon as possible. The next training course and assessments for the Advanced, Standard and Foundation licences will be run when sufficient candidates have registered. The club conducts 2 nets each week. The midweek net starts at 7:30pm on Thursday nights, and the weekend net takes place from 9am on Sunday mornings. Both nets are on a VK2 RPM 2-metre repeater on 146.7 MHz. This repeater requires a 91.5 Hz subaudible tone for access. Visitors are always made very welcome at the club's monthly general meeting at 2pm on the first Saturday of each month, and at the Friday night gatherings at 7pm on the evenings of the third Friday of each month. The venue for all these meetings is the SES building in Port Macquarie. For more information about the club, visit the website at orarc.org. The site contains a wealth of amateur radio items in addition to club information. The May 2018 web edition of the club's bi-monthly newsletter, Oxtails, along with past issues, can be viewed on the website. The July 2018 issue, which is a special edition reporting on the recent field day, will be published early in the month. The distribution to members will include the formal notice of the club's AGM, which takes place on Saturday, the 4th of August 2018. The distribution will include a nomination form for the election of office bearers for the coming year. All positions become vacant at the AGM. Members are urged to please consider the opportunity to contribute their time and expertise to the continuing successful running of the club. Submitted by Henry, VK2ZAG, for the Oxley Region Amateur Radio Club. Central Coast Amateur Radio Club. The club has anointed Dave, the VK2KFU, as its publicity officer, at least until the following AGM. Some people will remember Dave from his time volunteering at the VK2WI Dural, including as an announcer and engineer for many years. As well as running the annual Wyong Field Day, the CCARC also runs regular training and assessment courses, coordinated by our hard-working committee member, Karen, VK2AKB. As there is a lot of work involved in organising these events, volunteers are always welcome. The club recently ran a successful field day at Mount Elliot, with many a lesson learned about erecting portable antennae. The CCARC holds lectures on the third Saturday of every month. This coming Saturday sees Dave, VK2KFU, wearing another hat, being terrified at the prospect of talking about the LM317 regulator. You'll be fine, Dave. Business meetings are held on the first Saturday of the month. All are welcome. All meetings of the Central Coast Amateur Radio Club are held at the club rooms in Dandaloo Street, Carryong, just past the fire station at 1 p.m. Just look for the big tower, preceded by a wonderful sausage sizzle starting at noon. For the car bereft, there is a bus stop just opposite Dandaloo Street, serviced by the Route 43 bus from Gosford every hour. Submitted by Dave, a VK2KFU, CCARC Publicity Officer. West Lakes Amateur Radio Club. The West Lakes car boot sale is on Saturday the 28th of July, starting at around 8:30am. It's at the club grounds, 6A York Street, Taralba. You can take along any items you wish to sell, not just radio-related gear. There is no cost to set up, but bring your own table. There will be a barbecue and hot and cold drinks available. Any inquiries, please contact Barry, VK2QG, by phone on 0478 228 983. Advised by Barry, VK2QG, for the West Lakes Amateur Radio Club. Hunter Radio Group. The group is holding its mid-year social luncheon on Saturday the 4th of August. It's at the Windale Bowling Club, Lake Road, Windale, and starts at 11:30am. Bookings are required for catering, so please contact the group's president, Len VK2ZFD, by phone on 4957 7785, or social secretary Ardell Prout on 49448 393. Submitted by Rodney, VK2CN, Secretary, Hunter Radio Group. Manly Warringah Radio Society. This coming Wednesday the 18th is lecture night at the club. This month's speaker is Richard Degrees, PhD, who is Associate Dean for Global Engagement and Professor of Physics at Macquarie University. Professor de Gries is the author of the book Time and Time Again, Determination of Longitude at Sea in the 17th century. Not surprisingly, his lecture will be on the subject of time, so don't be late for this one. The club is currently testing a new 70cm DMR repeater on 438.4 MHz with a minus 5.4 MHz offset. This is a 3-month trial during which the 70cm D-Star repeater will be offline. VK2RMP is network node 505235 with a colour code of 1. Coverage reports are welcome. Visit the club website at www.mwrs.org.au for more information about these and other club projects, such as the web SDR sponsored by ARNSW, the club YouTube channel VK2RMP-TV, the club scouting program, and much more. The Manly Warringah Radio Society meets every Wednesday evening at the First Terry Hills Guides Hall, Beltana Avenue, Terry Hills. Doors open at 7:30pm for an 8pm start, and visitors are always welcome. If you need directions, call in on the club's 2-metre repeater on 146.875 MHz or visit the club's website at www.mwrs.org.au for more information. Submitted by Richard, VK2SKY, MWRS Publicity Officer. St George Amateur Radio Society. It's on again. The famous St George 80-metre contest will be held this year on Saturday the 28th of July. The purpose of the contest is to get in some practice for the Remembrance Day contest in August. The contest runs from 6pm until midnight local time. All amateurs are encouraged to listen out for St George Club members and give them a contact. For anyone not a member of the St George Amateur Radio Society but would like to become one, then have a look at the club's website at sgars.org and see what is involved. It is easy. Full details of the contest are available on the website sgars.org. 73 to VK2 EMU, St George Amateur Radio Society. Hornsby and District Amateur Radio Club. The next Haddock meeting is on Tuesday the 24th of July starting at 8pm. It's at the Mount Colah Community Centre in Pierre Close, Mount Colah, on the eastern side of the railway station. Saturday the 22nd of September is the centenary of the Marconi Fisk message, including the operation of special event station VK100 Marconi. The club runs 3 nets each week, Monday nights at 8pm on the VK2RNS 2-metre repeater. It's on 147.25 MHz. No tone is required, but a 91.5 Hz tone is sent. The Wednesday evening net is on 3608.5 kHz, also from 8pm. Morning tea with Haddock is on or near 7106 kHz from 9am on Fridays. Haddock's website is at www.haddock.org.au. The club has a group on Facebook which can be found by searching for VK2MA and on Twitter at VK2MA. Submitted by Julian, VK2YJS, Haddock Publicity Officer.
This is VK2WI and relay stations pausing for network identification. Would manual relay stations please identify? Thank you, relay stations. If you missed anything in this morning's bulletin, tune in tonight at 19:30 to the expanded VK2WI news service on all VK2WI frequencies and automated repeater relays. This is VK2WI on a range of frequencies and VKE 580 on 5425 kHz. We now return to the final segment of this morning's news.
Now we're up to the summary of coming events. July. The ORARC Friday night gathering on the 20th that is. Trans-Tasman Low-Bound contest on the 21st. Canberra Region ARC Foundation courses and exams at Red Hill on the 21st and 22nd. Haddock monthly meeting on the 24th. West Lakes ARC car boot sale at Teralba on the 28th. St George 80-metre contest on the 28th. ARNSW Trash and Treasure and Experimenters Group meeting on the 29th. August, St George ARS gathering on the 1st, St George ARS Foundation weekend on the 4th and 5th. ORARC AGM on the 4th, Hunter Radio Group Social Luncheon on the 4th, Wyson, New South Wales AGM at VK2WI Dural on the 11th. Remembrance Day contest on the 11th and 12th. International Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend on the 18th and 19th. Fisher's Ghost ARC meeting on the 29th. And September, St George ARS gathering on the 5th. Great North Walk Ultra, a Wyson event on the 8th and 9th. Barrington Sarex and a Wyson event from the 14th to 16th. Waverley ARS Foundation Weekend, the 15th and 16th. Centenary of the first direct message from the UK to Australia via radio on the 22nd. To submit items for inclusion in our news bulletins, please email to news@arnsw.org.au by the Friday night preceding the broadcast. Audio items can be accepted, but please email in advance to make arrangements. Broadcast roster. On tonight's news bulletin, the announcer will be Tim, a VK2ZTM, with Stephen, VK2FSLC as engineer. Next Sunday morning, the announcer will be Tim again, the VK2ZTM, with Peter, VK2HC as engineer. Then in the evening, the announcer will be Matthew, VK2YAP, with Eric, VK2EJH as engineer. That concludes our news this morning. Your announcer has been Stuart, VK2BMX, and your engineer has been Jeff, the VK2BYY. Callbacks will be taken shortly. Please call back to the relay station that provided the broadcast to you. On the Mount Bindo repeater, VK2RDX, callbacks will be taken shortly and the numbers relayed to VK2WI. Here at VK2WI, we will listen for callbacks for those who took the broadcast directly, and from the announcer's booth I will start with 80 metres, followed by 30, 20 and then finally 40 metres. In engineering, Jeff will be taking callbacks starting with 160 metres, followed by the high VHF 10 metre band and the VHF and UHF frequencies. He will advise the order. All the best from the broadcast team here at VK2WI. Have a great weekend and thank you for listening.